Hi, I'm Alicia. I'm a wildlife artist, animator, filmmaker and writer, originally from North Yorkshire and now based in Bristol. So, why should you animate? Well, animation is a fantastic storytelling method to add to your traditional wildlife films and natural history films. It's a really great way of bringing that extra bit of emotion and also making up for any footage that you may not have got, either because the archive doesn't exist, or because the species is a bit elusive, or just because things didn't play ball. But it can be a really fantastic tool to just bring things to life in a way that really connects with your audience. They are a really good way of tackling powerful issues in a way which feels accessible for everybody. Animation can feel a lot less scary compared to more traditional footage where things can feel intimidating. Lots of natural history films may deal with really difficult issues like climate change or fires or poaching, and animation can deal with those in a way which isn't showing distressing footage, and therefore it can feel a lot less scary for people, especially for younger viewers. So animation is a really fantastic resource to add to your storytelling tool belt. It's a really great skill to have, and there are so many different kinds of animation and they're all quite accessible as well. So firstly, there's time-lapse animation. This is probably the easiest one to do. So if you're just drawing something, you can film it using your phone or using a camera, mounting it or pushing it and filming it against what you're working on, and you can literally just set it up on time-lapse or speed it up in the editing software, and you can make something that literally shows you drawing and illustrating your topic. It's used in YouTube videos. It's a really fun way of animating and bringing something to life. And it's the most straightforward because you're not having to do frame by frame animations, you're just drawing one picture. Then there's things like stop motion animation, which is probably the most time consuming one, but again it looks really fun. It's the kind of thing that you see in Aardman like Shaun the Sheep or Morph. It's where you have like clay or plasticine or models which you slowly move and you take a photo of every single frame. Then you've got things like your more traditional animation, so specifically frame by frame animation, which is the kind of old school Disney stuff, Pixar things, where you have, you draw each individual frame and you stitch them together, and you can either do this by hand on a light box, where you literally have a physical piece of paper and you draw each frame. So I did this for this pigeon animation. And with this pigeon animation, I used it multiple times throughout the film because it took me so long to do it and it was only about 8 frames. I'd recommend it. There's a lot of fun things you can get. You can get some really cool like stylization effects, like with this pigeon I added watercolour, and that added an additional kind of feeling of flight and movement that I really enjoyed working with. But it does take a long time. So with animation as a whole, I would really recommend using it throughout your film a lot, like trying to really take advantage of any assets you create because they will take you a while. Also with animations, to kind of speed up the whole process, especially with frame by frame animations, I'd recommend making them loops. So things like walking, flying, running, jumping, anything which is a repetitive motion that you can have over and over again and which won't look weird, like it won't look weird that it's repeating, because it kind of makes sense because you'll be talking over it or you're contributing what you're talking over it and you'll be watching something that's moving. So for example, the animation that I produced for this as a little demo is a kestrel animation. This is a looping animation that I produced digitally, but with this one I drew it frame by frame, and so with all animations I'd really recommend observing what's around you. So because I like drawing animations that are like somewhat accurate and I like getting the movements right, I often look at films of GIFs and photos of the images of the animals I want to draw online first, so I can see how they move and make my animations really accurate. So with this kestrel, I looked at a GIF and I literally looked at how its wings were moving, how kestrels tend to like hover a little bit and then they do a big flap and then they might go back to hovering or they might dive down. So with my animation I wanted it to have the little hover and then the big flaps and then just kind of loop that. And so it actually wasn't as many frames as you'd expect, because with the hovering you can make sort of 5-6 frames and repeat them a few times before you then go into the big flap, which you might repeat a couple of times as well. And then you loop the entire thing. So when it comes to drawing something accurately, definitely have a look at my draw along videos because that will help you a little bit about how to break things down into shapes and how to look more closely at what you're drawing. But when it comes to animation, I'd say that observing the world around you is key as to making things look as accurate as possible and as authentic as possible. Everything moves in slightly different ways. There are always quirks for like how fast something's moving, and you can really express emotion through it. Like if someone's skipping or an animal is like jumping all over the place and they kind of have this sort of lightness to their animation, like maybe they are up in the air higher than other animals, that would to me suggest that they were really happy. So there's lots of little small things that you can kind of glean from animations. And there are so many great animators out there as well, so I'd recommend having a look to see how other people are doing it if this is something you're interested in, to see kind of what they do and whether you could use that too. So I think my top tips would be to decide what kind of animation you want to use, decide on your style. Style does take ages to develop, but honestly, like, don't worry about it too much. Just do what feels right for you, and your style will come quite naturally over time. I'd also really recommend observing the world around you, looking at the movements, how things move, and finally, just like have fun with it. Animation is a really fantastic storytelling tool to add to traditional film. It's something I absolutely love doing, and I can't wait to see what you guys produce. Good luck!